Hello YouTube. So it is about 3 a.m., quarter to 3. I am about 65% of the way done on my 4th attempt on a file transfer so that I can actually begin the work that I'm supposed to be doing tonight for one of my customers, but it's failed 3 times already, and I might cry if this one fails, but I think I've got a better approach. Anyway, so as this file transitions from one computer to another, I thought I'd talk to you about transition. It's funny, actually, I have a comment on one of my videos from a girl named Katelyn, a woman named Katelyn, who has been tweeting me on Twitter. I'm at Brin Convenient on Twitter. She's Katelyn1971. Apparently her therapist recommended my videos, so that's cool. So thank you, Katelyn's therapist. I feel sort of I don't know, flattered? Definitely flattered, but certainly uncertain. I don't know that that's a burden I'm quite ready for, but anyway, this comment, she asked me about any advice I would have for people who are just starting out on their transition, and maybe have just come out, and I thought that was sort of a fun coincidence because I've had this post-it note here since the last video I made that says video transition, because that was the topic I thought would probably be the next best one for me to talk about. I've talked a little bit about my own personal transition, largely the medical one. I have a playlist of 3 10-minute videos where I talk about hormone replacement therapy, or my experience with hormone replacement therapy. But that's not what transition is. Transition isn't a set of medications. It isn't a set of surgeries. Those things can be part of transition. And I think a lot of the people who really hate on trans women like to attack transition as you know, this method by which men become women, because they're always going after trans women and ignoring trans men, generally. You know, and if, like, what's the phrase I've heard? Well, if you weren't a man to begin with, then what was the transition? Like, how could you have transitioned to a woman if you were already a woman to begin with? And that's not what transition is. Transition, to me, in the definition that I've used, and I've shared this on bigender.net and a couple places here and there, but in fact, I'll just read what I have on bigender.net. I made this post back in February. I said, transition has a lot of meanings. I consider myself as having transitioned, but the real transition, and I think this is what's actually meant by almost all trans people when they say they transition, even if they're specifically referring to a particular procedure, medical intervention, or social status, is the transition from a place of fear, shame, denial, and deceit about the true nature of that person to a place of acceptance, honesty, and joy in the true nature of themselves. Some people take different paths to get there, of course. For some, they can't feel like they've transitioned unless they have a specific set of surgeries and transition socially in a particular set of places and with a particular group of people. Or they can't feel like they've transitioned until they've taken hormones for a predetermined length of time. Or, you know, some people need 1 or 2 or none of these to reach that self-acceptance. But the important transition, the real transition, is from denial to acceptance. And so really that's the big crux. We're transitioning from a state where we are told, and I'm generalizing here, but where we're told by the people in our lives, by the culture that surrounds us, by all of the media that we consume, by just pretty much any interaction in which trans people come up as a subject, even obliquely, we're told that we're disgusting, that we ought to be ashamed, that we're unlovable, we're unfuckable, you know, we're non-human. So it's transitioning from a place where you have internalized all of that fear and shame and hate to a place of celebration of yourself and joy in yourself and acceptance of yourself and who you are. And that acceptance gives you the strength to make the really difficult choices that are necessary to protect yourself in your life. You know, you're going to have toxic people in your life. And in pre-transition, you have almost certainly collected people along the way who are very toxic to your well-being. Maybe it's not because of anything to do with them being trans, or about you being transgender, so much as it is they are drama queens, or they're drama seeking and drama generating. I had a few people like that in my life. I've sort of always along the way collected people like causes, like projects. I would find people who had problems that seemed obvious and apparent to me, and you know, I felt like if they would just listen to me, I would fix all of their problems for them, and they would live happy lives like I was. Well, you know, what I realized eventually was that I was collecting all of these people and getting involved in all of their personal drama so that I could avoid paying any attention to what was going on inside of me. You know, it was a way to dodge all of the denial and the shame that I was feeling, and all the fear of what would happen if, you know, this terrible secret was found out, you know. So once I started dealing with, once I accepted myself, okay, because this happened really close to after I started transitioning socially. Once I started to accept myself, it made me realize that I was putting an awful lot of energy into somebody else's problems and somebody else's marriage and somebody else's affairs and somebody else's, you know, lives, and I wasn't putting any energy into mine. But having taken those first steps into actually transitioning and in, you know, accepting myself for who I am and realizing that that's an okay thing to be, and I'm allowed to make choices that are good for me. And that meant walking away from people who had been nothing but sources of drama and angst in my life, you know? And they had become toxic. So I walked away. There was, I don't know, 3 or 4, and it all sort of happened around the same time in May and June of 2010. And once I had those toxic elements out of my life, I really was able to see all of the things I had been avoiding about myself. That's when I really started to mourn my divorce and accept my gender and really start to learn about myself. And, you know, I learned things. Like, I learned that I'm bisexual. I got a crush on a guy, which I had never done before. And nothing came of it. He's gay. He doesn't date girls. So, but, you know, like, there was a lot that I had to deal with that once I removed those toxic elements from my life, I was able to do. I was able to put energy into. And I finally reached a point where I accepted myself for my flaws and my, you know, strengths. You know, I'm blanking on the opposite of flaws, but, you know, it is 5 minutes to 3. So, for all my flaws, for all of my good things, you know, I accepted those as just being part of me, and that was okay. And I think that's when, like, that was the moment that I transitioned. Making that leap, that acceptance from you know, this scared little girl in denial and living in fear to someone who understood, you know, herself and understood that I deserve to have good things in my life. And you know what? So do you. Hypothetical person who has just come out and started transitioning. You deserve good things in your life, and you deserve to make the choices that are good for you, even if you feel selfish or like you don't deserve them, because I think that's really where it comes from. Making those choices tends to feel wrong because you don't feel that you deserve to have good things, and that's a function of having internalized all of these messages that have told you forever that you are unacceptable and that you're non-human. But the fact is, you're beautiful, you're perfect, the way that you are. And, you know, and the sooner you accept, you know, yourself for who you are, then the better. And that's the transition. And sometimes there's things that have to be done in order to be able to reach that acceptance point, you know. You have to talk to a therapist, or you have to talk to your physician, or you have to start taking, you know, different medications, or you have to start taking steps to, you know, schedule surgeries that maybe you were scared to think about. But at the end of the day, it's all about you. And it's about what makes you feel authentic. And transitioning away from that fear to that acceptance is the biggest favor you'll ever do yourself. And you owe it to yourself to be as authentic as you can, because you only get this one life. And nobody's going to come to you in 10 years and say, you know, I know you realize that you should have made this choice 10 years ago, so I'm going to give you these 10 years back. Doesn't happen, you know? So, I don't know. I'm not telling you to be reckless or, you know, live today like it's your last, because it's nice to be able to plan for the future and have things to look forward to, but, you know, you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to have good things, and you deserve to feel like yourself, and be able to look in a mirror and be happy with what you see. And I think you can only get there if you can shed the fear and the shame that, you know, that underpins all of these feelings that you don't deserve to be who you want to be. So, that's it for me tonight. It's 13 minutes now, so I probably should have stopped this about halfway through, but I ramble. I've been told it's endearing. I hope it is. Anyway, so there's my thoughts on transition. My best wishes to all of you, and especially those of you who are taking those humongously brave steps, first steps out of the closet. Like, that's enormous. And many of us have been there, and I know how impossible it seems the first time you do it. And I do promise you that it gets easier to do, because the more you tell people... See, I'm going to keep talking anyway. The more you tell people that this is who I am, the more you accept that you're allowed to be who you want to be. So it becomes easier to come out, and it becomes easier to accept yourself. There's the real transition. Keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out what, you know, the physical and social part of your transition looks like. Remember that the most important part is what's going on in here, and what's going on in here. So yeah, that's me being sort of new agey, but I have my moments. All right. If you have anything to say, leave a comment below. Send me messages. No, they're over here. Up here in my inbox. Brin@bygender.net. Come to bygender.net in the forums. I'm on Twitter at BrinConvenient. I'm on Tumblr at brinconvenient.tumblr.com. So come find me. I am sufficiently reachable, I think. All right. Good night, everyone. I think my file is finally just about done. So thanks for helping me pass the time.